Ethan had never been the kind of man who enjoyed crowded events. He preferred quiet evenings at home, where he and Claire could talk, laugh, and enjoy their own little world. But tonight was different. Claire had asked him to join her at the company's annual celebration, and he could see how much it meant to her. She had worked tirelessly for weeks on a major campaign, and this party was where the results were being celebrated. Ethan didn't think twice about going. If it mattered to her, it mattered to him. The ballroom was already alive when they arrived. A soft glow came from the chandeliers overhead, and the sound of laughter mixed with music filled the air. Servers moved between groups, carrying trays of sparkling drinks and small plates of food. Ethan noticed how people naturally gravitated toward Claire as soon as she walked in. She had that presence, that rare ability to light up a room without even trying. In her navy blue dress, with her hair falling in gentle waves, she looked both elegant and approachable. Ethan felt proud watching her. She wasn't just his wife. She was the woman who had given him more love and support than he ever thought possible. He stood by her side smiling as she introduced him to coworkers and clients. Most of them were kind and welcoming, shaking his hand and offering polite words. A few shared stories about how Claire always went the extra mile at work, and Ethan loved hearing it. Every word was proof of the woman he already knew, so well-driven, caring, and admired. But then there was Ryan. Ryan was one of Claire's colleagues. In the moment Ethan met him, he felt something different in the air. Ryan was tall, confident, and carried himself like someone used to being noticed. His smile was polished, but it didn't feel warm. It was the kind of smile people used when they wanted to impress, not when they wanted to connect. His handshake was firm, maybe a little too firm, and his eyes seemed to linger on Claire just a little longer than necessary. Ethan didn't say anything. But he noticed Ryan joined the group around them, making casual jokes and drawing attention with his stories. People laughed, and Ethan could admit he was charming. But there was a sharpness underneath the charm, a competitive energy that seemed aimed at him more than anyone else. Each time Ryan spoke, he looked at Ethan afterward, as though checking to see how he would respond. Claire, ever gracious, smiled politely and tried to keep the conversation moving. She introduced Ethan again, this time adding a small detail about his work in strategy consulting. But Ryan only raised his eyebrows and gave a quick nod. He didn't ask questions, didn't show interest. Instead, he leaned back and redirected the focus toward Claire. Talking about projects she had led, late hours she had stayed, and the way she seemed to carry the team. At first, Ethan thought it was harmless, just a colleague praising her. But as the minutes passed, the compliments started sounding more like subtle jabs. Ryan would glance at Ethan and say things like, "You must be used to Claire running the show. She practically leads everything here," or "You must find it interesting." Being married to the most talked-about person in the office, the words were disguised as humor. But Ethan caught the undertone. Ryan wanted to see if he would react. Would he show jealousy? Would he feel insecure? Would he shrink under the weight of someone else praising his wife in such a pointed way? Ethan didn't. Instead, he smiled, his calmness unsettling in its own way. When Ryan remarked that Claire was the center of the room, Ethan replied simply, "She's been the center of my world for years. I'm not surprised others see it too." The group chuckled lightly. Claire's eyes softened with affection, and for a moment Ryan's smirk faltered. But he recovered quickly, leaning back with an air of superiority. As though he had only just begun to play, Ethan knew exactly what was happening, but he didn't let it shake him. He had nothing to prove to Ryan. His love for Claire wasn't fragile. It didn't need defending with raised voices or cutting remarks. He knew who he was, and he knew the bond he and Claire shared. That was enough still. He couldn't ignore the tension building in the air. It wasn't loud or obvious, but it was there, current running beneath the laughter and the clinking glasses. Ryan wanted to provoke him, and sooner or later, Ethan suspected he would try harder. Claire seemed to sense it too. She glanced at Ethan now and then, her smile never fading, but her hand lightly brushing his, as if to check he was all right. Ethan gave her a small nod, a silent reassurance. He was fine. He wasn't angry, but he was watching, waiting and ready. As the evening moved on, the conversations flowed. The music grew livelier and more people filled the room. Ethan couldn't help but feel that something was coming, that the night wouldn't pass without Ryan pushing one step further. The thought didn't worry him, though. If anything, it made him even calmer. Because Ryan had no idea who he was, no idea how steady and grounded Ethan could be when others tried to shake him. And as he stood there, holding a glass in one hand and Claire's presence beside him, he knew the night was only just beginning. The dinner tables were set with polished silver and tall glasses of wine. The kind of arrangement that made everyone feel important. Ethan and Claire sat near the center, surrounded by her closest colleagues. The conversation was light, at first talk of vacations, hobbies, and the excitement of the company's recent success. Claire laughed easily, her smile drawing people in, and Ethan enjoyed watching her shine. But Ryan wasn't finished with his game. He leaned forward during a lull in conversation, his eyes narrowing slightly as he looked at Ethan. His tone was smooth, almost playful, but the words carried weight. "So, Ethan, it must be something. Being married to Claire, she's the star of our office, always in the spotlight. I imagine it keeps you busy, doesn't it?" The table laughed politely, though a few shifted uncomfortably. It was the kind of joke that didn't feel like a joke. Claire glanced at Ethan quickly, her eyes almost apologetic, as if she wished she could stop Ryan from speaking. Ethan stayed calm. He set down his fork, gave a soft smile, and answered evenly, "I'd say it's the other way around. Claire keeps me inspired. She brings out the best in me." Claire's eyes softened, her lips curving into a smile that was just for him. The others nodded politely, impressed by his confidence and warmth. But Ryan wasn't satisfied. He smirked, swirling the wine in his glass, as if considering his next move. "Well," Ryan continued, "I guess it takes a certain kind of man to stand beside someone like Claire. Around here, her name comes up a lot. She's practically running the place. You sure that doesn't make you worry, Ethan? Knowing she has so much influence here?" The comment landed heavier than before. This time the laughter didn't come so easily. A few of the coworkers exchanged quick glances, as though wondering where this was going. Claire shifted in her chair, her hand brushing the edge of her napkin. She knew Ryan's habit of pushing boundaries, but this was going too far. Ethan didn't flinch. He looked at Ryan, not with anger, but with steady calm. "Why would I worry about that? I'm proud of her. If people respect Claire, that's exactly how it should be. She's earned it." The words were simple, but they carried weight. Claire's chest tightened as she heard them. She knew Ethan meant every word. He didn't just tolerate her success, he celebrated it. That was one of the many reasons she loved him. Ryan raised an eyebrow, pretending to brush it off, but Ethan could see the flicker of irritation in his eyes. This wasn't the reaction he'd hoped for. He wanted Ethan to stumble, to show jealousy, to look small. Instead, Ethan's calm answers only made him seem stronger. The evening pressed on, but Ryan kept trying. He dropped little comments here and there, always aimed at Ethan, always wrapped in humor that wasn't quite humor. He brought up late nights at the office, how Claire stayed long after others had gone home. He mentioned how she was the first person clients asked for in meetings. Each remark was carefully designed to stir doubt, to plant questions, but Ethan didn't bite. He listened politely, responded when necessary, and never let his voice rise or his expression harden. His quiet confidence only made Claire fall for him all over again. Still, beneath the calm surface, Ethan could feel the tension growing. He didn't like the way Ryan's words hovered around Claire, as though trying to pull her into a spotlight that had nothing to do with respect and everything to do with ego. He didn't like the way Ryan seemed to want an audience, as if making Ethan uncomfortable would somehow prove something. The truth was, Ethan wasn't uncomfortable. He wasn't threatened. He knew who Claire was, and he knew the life they had built together. No comment could shake that. But he also knew men like Ryan, who thrived on testing others. Men who mistook kindness for weakness. Claire leaned closer at one point, her voice low so only he could hear. "I'm sorry. He's always like this when there's an audience." Ethan gave her a reassuring smile. "Don't worry. He doesn't bother me," and it was true. Ryan's attempts rolled off him like water. But what Ryan didn't know was that Ethan had already earned respect in places Ryan couldn't imagine. He wasn't just Claire's husband standing quietly by her side. He had his own strength, his own accomplishments, his own role in the very success they were celebrating tonight. Ryan had no idea. The dinner plates were cleared, and the music from the dance floor grew louder as the evening shifted into celebration. But the invisible tug-of-war between Ryan and Ethan hadn't ended. Every time the evening had shifted from quiet conversation to a livelier celebration. Music played softly in the background, waiters moved quickly between tables, and more people gathered near the stage where the awards would soon be announced. The mood in the ballroom was light for most, but at Ethan and Claire's table, the tension hadn't disappeared. Ryan had kept his smile, but his eyes gave him away. He had spent most of the dinner trying to unsettle Ethan, but Ethan's calm replies and steady presence had left him frustrated. For every clever remark Ryan tried, Ethan responded with dignity. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice, didn't look insecure. Instead, he made Ryan look like the only one trying too hard. Claire noticed it all. She held Ethan's hand under the table once, squeezing it lightly, as if to thank him for staying so composed. She wanted the night to be about celebration, not awkward battles of ego. Yet she knew Ryan well enough to expect he wasn't finished. When the lights dimmed slightly, a hush fell over the crowd. The company's CEO, Mr. Harrison, stepped onto the stage. He was a tall man with silver hair and the kind of presence that demanded attention. The chatter quieted, glasses were set down, and all eyes turned toward him. "Good evening, everyone," Mr. Harrison began, his voice warm but commanding. "Tonight we gather to celebrate not only a successful year, but also the incredible team that made it possible. Each of you has played a part in our growth. Tonight we honor that effort." The crowd applauded and Claire clapped along, smiling with pride. She knew her team had worked tirelessly, and she was happy to see them recognized. Ryan leaned slightly toward Ethan during the applause, his voice low but sharp enough for Ethan to hear. "Now you'll see what I mean. Claire's the star here. They'll be talking about her all night." Ethan only gave a small smile. "I'd be proud if they did." Ryan frowned, irritated again by Ethan's steady calm. He turned back to the stage, confident that his prediction would still make its point. Mr. Harrison continued, praising the team's efforts, naming individuals who had gone above and beyond. Claire's name came up, and the applause around her table grew. She blushed slightly, touched by the recognition. Ethan clapped with genuine pride, his eyes shining with admiration for her. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Harrison's tone shifted. "There's one more acknowledgement I'd like to make before we move on. While many of you already know the faces behind this project, there's someone here tonight whose contributions happened quietly, behind the scenes. Without his insight, we might not have landed the client we did." The room grew curious. People leaned forward, whispering to one another, trying to guess who he was talking about. Ryan sat taller, a confident smile spreading across his face, as if convinced the praise was about to fall on him. Mr. Harrison smiled, his gaze moving across the crowd. "I'm speaking of Ethan Hayes, Claire's husband, who generously shared his expertise and strategy with our team when we needed it most." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then applause broke out, louder than before, echoing across the ballroom. Heads turned toward Ethan, surprised expressions on faces that had only seen him as a guest, not as part of their success. Claire's eyes lit up, pride overflowing as she squeezed his hand again. Ethan gave a modest smile, nodding in acknowledgement, though he didn't seek the spotlight. He had never wanted recognition, it wasn't his style. But now, as the truth came out, he could feel Ryan's eyes on him. Ryan's confident smirk vanished. His glass froze halfway to his lips. The realization washed over him slowly. Ethan wasn't just a quiet husband standing at Claire's side. He was a man respected by the CEO himself, someone who had shaped the very project they were celebrating. Mr. Harrison went on to explain how Ethan had advised the team during a critical stage, offering strategies that ultimately secured the deal. "It's not often we get to celebrate someone who isn't officially on our payroll," the CEO joked lightly. "But when someone makes this kind of impact, it deserves recognition." The applause swelled again. People turned in their chairs to congratulate Ethan, offering handshakes and smiles. Claire's heart swelled with pride as she watched him handle it all with his usual calm humility. At the same table, Ryan shifted uncomfortably, his earlier confidence replaced with unease. He didn't clap at first, though eventually, under the weight of so many eyes, he gave a stiff round of applause. But his face said everything: shock, irritation, perhaps even a touch of embarrassment. Ethan leaned slightly toward Claire, speaking quietly so only she could hear. "I didn't expect him to mention me." She smiled, her eyes soft. "You deserve it. I've been wanting everyone to know how much you helped. I'm glad they finally do." The music picked up again as the formal part of the program ended, and people began moving toward the dance floor. The mood was lighter now, conversations buzzing about the surprise acknowledgement. Ethan received several handshakes from people he had never met before, each one thanking him for his contribution. Ryan sat back for a moment, silent, as though processing everything. The man he had spent the entire evening trying to provoke had just been revealed as someone who had quietly played a crucial role in their success. His plan to make Ethan look small had backfired spectacularly. When Ethan finally met his gaze, he didn't gloat, didn't smirk, didn't even look smug. He simply gave Ryan a polite nod, the kind that carried both courtesy and quiet strength. Ryan looked away first. Claire leaned against Ethan, her smile radiant. "I told you you'd fit in tonight," she teased softly. He chuckled. "I'm not sure this is what you meant," but in his heart he felt no need to say more. The truth had spoken for itself. He didn't have to argue with Ryan or defend his place at Claire's side. The recognition from the CEO, the respect from the crowd, and most of all, the love in Claire's eyes were more powerful than anything Ryan could have tried. Yet as Ethan glanced back toward Ryan, he could see the man wasn't finished. His pride had been bruised, and though he had been silenced for now, Ethan sensed he might still try to regain some ground before the night was over. The evening wasn't done with them yet. Part 4. The Moment of Truth Expanded Version. The ballroom slowly shifted back into celebration after the speeches. Music grew louder, laughter returned, and the dance floor filled with couples. Ethan and Claire stood together near the edge of the room, their hands lightly touching, both still processing what had just happened. Claire was glowing with pride, her smile brighter than any light in the room. Ethan remained calm, as if the recognition from the CEO had been just another moment in a long night. But Ryan hadn't disappeared. After lingering at the bar for a while, he walked back toward them. His confident stride was still there, but his expression was different. The smirk was gone, replaced with something closer to caution. He stopped in front of Ethan, holding his glass loosely, and spoke in a tone far quieter than before. "I didn't realize," Ryan admitted, forcing a smile. "I had no idea you were involved in the project. Impressive work." Ethan looked at him evenly, his voice steady. "It's not about who gets credit. It's about respecting the people who put in the work. Claire deserves that more than anyone." Ryan shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure how to respond. For the first time that evening, he seemed smaller, less sure of himself. He nodded stiffly and excused himself, disappearing into the crowd. Claire turned to Ethan, her eyes searching his. "You handled that better than I ever could have. I was worried he would get under your skin." Ethan smiled, brushing a loose strand of her hair back into place. "Why would I let him? I know who you are, Claire. And I know who I am. Nothing he says can change that." Her chest tightened at his words. She had always admired Ethan's calmness, but tonight, seeing him face Ryan without anger or pride, only with quiet strength, made her love him even more. The music shifted to a slower tune, and couples began to sway on the dance floor. Claire looked at him with a playful smile. "Dance with me?" Ethan chuckled softly. "You know I'm terrible at this." "You're perfect at it," she whispered. Taking his hand before he could protest, they moved onto the floor, blending into the sea of dancers. Claire rested her head against his chest, and Ethan wrapped his arms gently around her. The world outside the moment disappeared. It didn't matter who was watching, what had been said, or how the evening had begun. Right there in the soft glow of the ballroom, It was just them. Claire spoke quietly, her voice carrying emotion. You don't know how much it means to me having you here. I always feel stronger with you by my side. Ethan kissed the top of her head softly. And I feel the same. You make me better, Claire. That's what love is supposed to do. As they swayed, coworkers passed by, offering smiles and warm glances. Some whispered about Ethan's contribution, others admired the way the two of them looked together. Even the CEO, watching from the side, smiled knowingly at the couple. Meanwhile, Ryan sat at a far table watching. For the first time all evening, he didn't try to interrupt. He could see the bond between Claire and Ethan, and deep down, he knew there was nothing he could do to shake it. Claire lifted her head slightly, her eyes meeting Ethan's. You really didn't mind his comments, did you? Ethan shook his head. No. People like him mistake kindness for weakness. But the truth is, strength doesn't come from putting others down. It comes from knowing who you are and standing by it. Claire's eyes shimmered with uns.